Welcome to the module on lifting and stabilizing load. By the end of this module, you will be able to describe the methods of lifting a load, define a lever, its three components and the three classes of a lever, explain the process of cribbing, list two types of cribbing used to stabilize a load, explain the steps to roll a load, and understand the role of volunteers. When natural disasters or large-scale emergencies occur, it is important to move people who are hurt or in trouble to a safer place. The safe movement of patients will improve their chances of survival and aid in the recovery process. It is also important to clear debris from the affected areas as it helps the rescue teams access the affected area and prevent further injuries. But how do we move the patients to a safer place without causing them harm? And how do we lift heavy loads while preventing injuries? Let's find answers to these questions in this module. Let's begin with understanding the rules for lifting loads. In order to facilitate lifting and to prevent injury, we should maintain proper body posture. Here are the basic rules for lifting. Plan your move carefully and position your feet properly for stability. Lift with your legs, not your back. Keep your back as straight as possible while lifting. Try to avoid bending at the waist more than necessary. When lifting with one hand, avoid leaning to the opposite side. Bend your knees to grasp the object, maintaining a straight back. Keep the weight of the object as close to your body as you can. While lifting a patient, maintain clear and frequent communication with your partner or team and with the patient. Maintain eye contact, an important aspect of coordination, and verbally coordinate moves from start to finish for safety and efficiency. In disaster situations, lifting loads is a crucial task. It is essential to understand the principles of lifting a load to prevent further accidents and reduce strain. Let's now discuss the concept of lifting loads. Long ago, man learned that work done by machines is easier than work done with muscle power. However, in some cases, heavy equipment cannot be used because the movement or operation of that equipment might cause harm to the victim and lead to further collapse. In such situations, basic tools can be used to create tremendous mechanical advantage to lift large loads safely. Let's now discuss the methods for lifting loads. Before lifting or moving a load, the following factors must be examined. Weight of the load, consequences when the load is moved, that is, what will happen, and selection of the method for lifting or moving the load. There are three methods available for lifting a load. These include the lever, the come-along, and hydraulic jacks or rams. Let's discuss these methods in detail. The lever is a simple method for lifting a load. There are three components that make up a lever. These include fulcrum, load, and force. A lever is a rigid bar, either straight or bent, that is free to move on an affixed point called a fulcrum. The fulcrum is the object or place that supports the load when a lever is used to move another object. Some of the applications of levers are moving a load that is too heavy to move by hand, pulling or hauling, and raising. Some of the common examples of levers are the shovel, crowbar, pliers, hammer, scissors, and wrench. There are three types of levers: Class 1 lever, Class 2 lever, and Class 3 lever. Drag the pointer to each type of lever to know more about it. In Class 1 levers, the fulcrum is placed between the force and the load. This arrangement provides the greatest mechanical advantage when lifting a load vertically. You can increase the mechanical advantage by using a longer lever. This is the most useful and efficient lever for moving objects horizontally. It has the greatest mechanical advantage. Crowbar and pry bar are good examples of a Class 1 lever. They are very useful for lifting objects vertically. In a Class 2 lever, the load is placed between the force and the fulcrum. It consists of a fulcrum at one end, a load in the middle, and a force on the other end. Wheelbarrows are a type of second-class lever. It is a very useful and efficient lever for moving objects horizontally. In a Class 3 lever, the force is placed between the load and the fulcrum. It places a load on one end, the fulcrum on the opposite end, and the force in the middle. This type of lever is used when force may be sacrificed for the advantage of moving an object over a greater distance. Shovels and brooms are examples of third-class levers. Let's now discuss the come-along method for lifting a load. The come-along provides a mechanical advantage for lifting and pulling using a lever and gear ratcheting system. It consists of an anchor hook on one end and a load hook attached to a retractable chain or steel cable. Hydraulic jacks are operated with a lever to apply force to a ram. These devices are used primarily for lifting heavy loads. Though they usually have only a short reach, they are extremely powerful. A hand-operated bottle jack can lift as much as 50 tons. It is important to keep the hydraulic jack table to the ground. The jack is not designed to handle lateral loads. So far, you have learnt about the various methods of moving patients and different methods for lifting loads. Now, let's take up an activity to check your understanding. Here are the terms and their related images. Drag the term, drop it in the slot to match its image, and click Submit. During rescue operations, when searching for a trapped person, there will be a need to lift a load. In such situations, you need to ensure the safety of the rescuer along with the trapped person. To achieve this, temporary support is required to lift the load. One quick, simple method of temporary support is known as cribbing. Let's now discuss the method of cribbing used to stabilize and support loads. Cribbing is the construction of a table platform using wood pieces to provide stability and support for loads. Cribbing is constructed of small-sized wood pieces arranged in rows and columns to support the weight of an object. Shims are used to fill in small spaces and secure the object in its position as it is being lifted. Shims are also used to change the angle of thrust in order to achieve optimum contact with uneven or sloping surfaces. The failure of a wood cribbing system is slow and noisy as the wood fibers are crushed. This usually provides ample warning of impending failure for rescuers. To prevent the failure of a cribbing system, it is necessary to consider the requirements for improvised cribbing. The requirements are as follows. The material used must have flat surfaces on both sides, and the material must be able to withstand the weight of the object being supported. Examples of materials used for the cribbing system include furniture, bricks, concrete blocks, tires, and rims. Let's now look at the different types of cribbing. There are mainly two types of cribbing: box cribbing and platform or cross-tie cribbing. Click each image to know more. Box cribbing is built with wood blocks in a square configuration, using two parallel blocks per layer. The layers are set at 90 degrees to each other with the ends of the wood blocks overlapping each other by 10 centimeters. The box crib has an open center. The platform or cross-tie cribbing is built with wood blocks in solid layers of 3 or more wood pieces each. Layers are set 90 degrees to each other. Little or no space is left between the wood pieces. The ends of the wood pieces must also overlap each other by 10 centimeters. Let's now discuss the guidelines and safety measures for cribbing. The general guidelines for cribbing are: the first layer should be solid to fully distribute the load, especially on softer surfaces such as soil and asphalt. The general rule is to limit the cribbing height to 3 times the width of the pieces of wood being used for cribbing, which is a 3:1 height-to-width ratio. For example, if the pieces of wood are 1 meter wide from one side of the first crib to the outer side of the last crib, the cribbing should not exceed 3 meters in height. Always overlap corners by approximately 10 centimeters. This prevents splitting of corners of individual pieces that can negatively impact overall stability. The cribbing should involve a multi-member layup of 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters to 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters number in 2 or 3 member per layer configuration. The load-bearing capacity of wood depends on the type and quality of wood. The capacity is determined by the perpendicular to grain load applied to the sum of all bearing surfaces. Cribbing used by contractors or in short-term emergencies often relies only on the friction between bearings for lateral strength, which is insufficient for aftershocks. Individual pieces may be notched to provide lateral resistance in addition to the friction between pieces. Metal clips may also be used to improve lateral strength and diagonal braces between pairs of cribs. Here are the safety measures to be followed while setting up a cribbing system. Lift an inch and crib an inch. Never place hands beneath a load while cribbing, and for maximum stability, the height of the cribbing should not be more than 3 times the width of the cribbing blocks, that is, 3:1 ratio. Let's next discuss the procedure for lifting and stabilizing loads. The procedure for lifting and stabilizing loads consists of gradually lifting the target object or load and inserting one layer of cribbing after another until sufficient clearance and stability are obtained. Let's look at the step-by-step process of lifting and stabilizing loads. Make sure to use full personal protective equipment or PPE before starting any work. Make an initial opening using a pry bar or similar tool. Set up a lever system with the pry bar. Lift the load gradually to create an opening large enough to set up the first layer of cribbing under it. Use wedges to prop up the load gradually as you are lifting. If the pry bar slips or breaks, this will prevent the load from dropping any distance. It is not necessary to lift the full height of the next layer of cribbing all at once. Raise the fulcrum, raise the load again, and set up the next level of cribbing with the wood pieces at 90 degrees to the previous layer. The video shown here demonstrates the procedure for lifting a load and inserting cribbing under it. You can use metal tubes to roll heavy loads instead of lifting them. Follow these simple steps as a guide for rolling a load. Raise the loads lightly using a class 1 lever just enough to slide 3 metal tubes underneath it. Use the lifting technique for cribbing, then, using class 2 levers, push the load in the desired direction. The tubes may be fanned to turn the load as it rolls. The video shown here demonstrates the procedure for rolling a load. Next, let's learn about the role of volunteers. Volunteers can help in many ways. Volunteers can help responders in ensuring the safety of the victims by clearing hazards present at incident site. Volunteers can help rescuers in carrying injured victims manually or using a stretcher. They can also help MFRs in dressing and stabilization of injured victims. Volunteers must be aware that certain patient conditions call for special techniques so that injuries do not get aggravated. In such conditions, wait for a medic or doctor. Volunteers may help medical staff in the maintenance of a basic life support system. With this, we have come to the end of the module. Let's recollect the key points discussed in the module. During disasters, it is important to move injured people to a safer place. There are two different situations for moving patients: when there is no threat of injury and when the scene is potentially unsafe or poses an immediate threat. Patient moving techniques are classified as emergency moves and non-emergency moves. Situations requiring emergency moves are fire, explosion, and inability to protect the patient from hazards. A non-emergency move is preferred when the patient is stable and you have adequate time and personnel for the move. There are 3 methods available for lifting a load. These include the lever, the come-along, and hydraulic jacks or rams. A quick and simple method of supporting the load temporarily is known as cribbing. Cribbing is made up of small-sized wood pieces arranged in rows and columns to support the weight of an object. There are mainly 2 types of cribbing: box cribbing and platform or cross-tie cribbing. The procedure for lifting and stabilizing a load consists of lifting the target object or load and inserting one layer of cribbing after another until sufficient clearance and stability are obtained. Volunteers can help rescuers in ensuring the safety of victims.